The rain had stopped just before evening mass. Outside, the hills of Kerala shimmered in a thin mist, their green fading into twilight. Inside Christ, the King Church in Vilakkannur, only a handful of candles flickered before the altar. A few parishioners knelt in silence. In this quiet, humble place hardly known beyond the village, the unthinkable was about to unfold. A young altar server later said he felt it first. Not fear, not awe, but stillness. The air seemed to thicken, and for a moment everyone stopped breathing. Then, one by one, people began to whisper, "There's a face, do you see it?" It was March 2023. No one filmed it immediately. They were too stunned. But the photographs taken later that night would travel far beyond Kerala, all the way to Rome. And what those images showed would soon be examined by bishops and scientists, and finally by the Vatican itself. What began as an ordinary evening of adoration in a small Indian parish would become one of the most remarkable Eucharistic events of the 21st century. And it started, as miracles often do, with prayer, doubt, and silence. To understand what happened in Vilakkannur, you first have to see the rhythm of life there. The village lies hidden among the tea-covered hills of northern Kerala, in India's southern tip. The roads twist through rainforest, and when the rains come, the world turns green in a way that feels almost otherworldly. Faith in this region runs deep. Every hillside has a cross, every home a small altar lit with a single candle. The people work hard, pray hard, and carry their devotion quietly. At the center of this community stands Christ the King Church, a modest white building built in the 1940s by Carmelite missionaries. It isn't grand one nave, a small choir loft, a bell that can be heard across the valley, but for the 500 families of the parish, it is the heart of everything. The church's pastor, Father Johnson Matam CMI, is a man of calm energy. Parishioners describe him as someone who listens more than he speaks. He leads the daily rosary, visits the sick, and is known for encouraging the young people to pray before the Blessed Sacrament whenever they feel lost. Each evening, after work in the fields or tea estates, villagers climb the hill to the church for adoration. There's no choir, no microphones, just the sound of sandals on stone and whispered prayers. Father Johnson often tells them, the Eucharist is not a symbol. It is a presence. When you look at him, he looks at you. For months before the event, the parish had been praying for renewal. Many people felt that reverence for the Eucharist was fading in the wider world, especially after the pandemic, when online services had replaced in-person worship. Father Johnson wanted his community to feel that sense of wonder again. Every Friday evening would be holy hour, and families would take turns keeping vigil through the night. The faithful responded with enthusiasm. They decorated the church with fresh flowers, repaired the wooden pews, and polished the monstrance until it shone. Even children stayed late, kneeling beside their parents on the cool stone floor. No one expected that one of those evenings would change the village forever. Among those who attended regularly was Asha, a mother of two, who came to pray for her husband's recovery. There was Thomas, a quiet teenager serving as an altar boy, known for his shy smile. There was also Marikati, the parish cook, who had prepared meals for priests for more than 30 years. They were ordinary people of simple faith. Yet each would later say that something about that week felt different. The air seemed charged. Even the candles burned brighter. On the morning of March 5th, 2023, Father Johnson wrote in his notebook a single line that he used in every homily. "Lord, show us your face, and we shall be saved." It was a prayer from the Psalms, one he had prayed countless times without imagining it might ever be answered so literally. That evening the sky turned gold before sunset. The villagers gathered again, kneeling in their familiar places as the priest exposed the blessed sacrament. None of them knew that within the next hour, something extraordinary would appear in that small white circle of bread. The night before the event, rain had swept across Vilakkannur like a curtain, soaking the hills and cooling the air. By Sunday morning, the sky was washed clean, bright with the kind of sunlight that makes colors sharper: the red of roof tiles, the gold of coconut palms. Inside Christ, the King Church, the smell of wax and flowers filled the nave. The sacristan had laid out a fresh corporal, the pure linen cloth that would hold the monstrance, and checked the candles twice. After the afternoon catechism class, Father Johnson stayed behind to prepare for the evening's adoration. He had planned to speak about gratitude, the simple act of seeing God in daily life. Before locking the tabernacle, he whispered a prayer: "Let us see you as you are." And then, as was his habit, he touched the edge of the corporal, making sure it was straight. He didn't notice anything unusual. Not yet. Meanwhile, the first families began arriving, some on foot, others on bicycles balancing umbrellas across their handlebars. Children carried small candles, wrapped in paper cups, to shield the flame from the wind. The pews filled slowly, the low hum of prayer mixed with the rustle of saras and the creak of benches. In the front row, Asha knelt with her children. Her youngest, barely 6 years old, was unusually quiet. He kept looking toward the altar and asked in a whisper, "Mama, why is it shining?" She smiled, thinking he meant the gold of the monstrance, and told him to close his eyes and pray. Thomas, the altar boy, stood near the sacristy door, holding the censer. He would later say that he felt a warmth near the altar, like standing under sunlight, even though the only light came from candles. When the priest began the prayers of exposition, his voice echoed softly, "O sacrament most holy, O sacrament divine, all praise and all thanksgiving be every moment thine." The congregation repeated the response in Malayalam, their native tongue voices rising and falling like waves. The minutes passed quietly. Nothing dramatic, no sound, no sign, only the slow rhythm of prayer. Yet several people said later that time itself seemed to stretch. A few glanced at their watches and were surprised to see that only 20 minutes had passed. As the rosary began, the candles flickered, though there was no breeze. Asha's little boy tugged at her sleeve again. "Mama, it's brighter now," he whispered. She hushed him, eyes closed, unaware that several others had noticed the same thing. One by one, heads lifted, eyes opened. Someone gasped. Father Johnson was reading from his missal when the congregation fell silent. He looked up, and at first he thought a light from outside had hit the monstrance. But the windows were closed, and the glow came not from the candles, but from within the host itself. It seemed to breathe, to pulse with color white turning to gold, then to a faint, rose-tinted hue. He stepped closer, heart racing. The light deepened, and lines began to form across the surface, soft at first, then clearer, like a sketch emerging on paper. Within seconds, those lines became the outline of a face. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The host, once plain and white, now seemed alive with light. It glowed softly, as if a lamp were burning within it. The shape that had begun as faint lines now looked unmistakably human of face. The eyes were gentle, the expression serene. Some described it as the face of Christ. Others said it looked like a man in deep prayer, crowned in shadow and radiance at once. Whatever each person saw, all felt the same overwhelming stillness. Father Johnson froze in the middle of his step. A pulse of warmth moved through the church, not heat, but something deeper, the kind of warmth that brings tears before you understand why. Someone whispered, "It's him." Then a child began to cry, not out of fear but wonder. People dropped to their knees almost in unison. Even the hum of insects outside seemed to stop. Father Johnson whispered a line that none of the microphones picked up, though those near him later recalled it. "My Lord and my God." He reached for the thurible. The small chain trembled in his hand as he lifted it and swung the censer gently, sending clouds of incense into the golden air. The smoke swirled around the monstrance, curling upward until it formed a pale veil over the host. For a moment the image disappeared behind the haze, and when it cleared, the face seemed clearer still, illuminated from within. Asha pressed her hands against her mouth, tears streaking down her cheeks. Her little boy tugged at her arm. "Mama," he whispered, "Jesus is smiling." Thomas, the altar server, stood motionless beside the priest, censer in hand, eyes wide. He would later say he felt as if the entire church were breathing in rhythm with the glow before them. Father Johnson didn't speak for several minutes. He simply stood before the monstrance, eyes fixed, whispering silent prayers of thanksgiving and disbelief. His instinct told him to record what he was seeing, but his heart told him to wait. Only after several long minutes did he turn to Thomas and nod toward the sacristy. The boy understood and slipped out to fetch the small digital camera used for parish events. When he returned, Father Johnson gave one last look at the luminous host, then whispered to the congregation, "Do not speak. Keep praying. Let us capture what God has given." Thomas raised the camera, hands shaking, and snapped the first photograph. The flash reflected on the golden monstrance, and for an instant everyone blinked. When they looked again, the image on the host had not changed. It remained calm and clear. A few more photos followed, each capturing the same mysterious face. They would later be printed, examined, and circulated far beyond the village. After nearly an hour, the light began to soften. The lines of the face slowly faded until only the faint outline of eyes remained. Then, as quietly as it had come, the glow vanished. The host returned to its usual white stillness, resting in the monstrance under candlelight. Father Johnson closed his eyes and whispered, "Let us adore in silence. He has spoken without words." The congregation stayed long after the benediction. Some wept. Others simply sat, too stunned to move. No one wanted to leave the place where heaven had brushed the earth. Outside, the rain began again, tapping softly on the church roof, mingling with the prayers still being whispered inside. Later that night, when Father Johnson reviewed the photos on the parish computer, he felt the same chill he had felt standing before the altar. The image was there, a distinct human face on the surface of the host, surrounded by a soft halo of light. It wasn't an illusion of candles or camera flash. It was visible in every frame. The next morning, he sent the images to the diocesan chancery in Thalassery, attaching a brief report that ended with one line: "If this is what it seems to be, may it deepen our reverence for the Holy Eucharist." Within a week, church officials arrived to collect the host and the photographs for investigation. The people of Vilakkannur had returned to their routines, but the air in the village felt different. They spoke quietly, reverently, of what they had seen. For them, it was not a story, it was a memory. When a miracle is whispered in a village, it often travels faster than the wind. Within days of the Vilakkannur event, word had spread beyond Kerala's hills, first through parish WhatsApp groups, then across India, and finally to Catholic media around the world. Everywhere the question was the same: what happened to that host? Father Johnson was overwhelmed by phone calls and journalists at the gate, but his first duty was to his bishop. He sent the photographs and his written account to Archbishop Mar George Njaralakat of the Archdiocese of Thalassery. The Archbishop's reply was simple: "Guard the host. We will come." The Church moves slowly in such matters. History has taught her caution. For every genuine miracle, there are countless coincidences, camera reflections, or simple errors. Within a week, a small team of priests and scientific consultants arrived. Among them was Father Sebastian Pathickal, the diocesan chancellor, and Dr. Sijo Varghese, a physicist from a Catholic university nearby. Their task was not to believe, but to observe. The host and the monstrance were placed under controlled light in the rectory. The investigators used magnifying lenses, microscopes, and polarized filters to test for optical illusions. They looked for smudges, water stains, or candle soot that could mimic an image. But under every test, the mysterious face remained visible. It was not pigment, nor burn, nor reflection. In certain angles, it even seemed three-dimensional, shifting gently when the host was moved, as though the light itself carried the imprint. Father Johnson answered every question patiently. He described the sequence of prayers, the time of day, the number of witnesses. He never once called it a miracle. He called it a sign. The investigators took statements from more than 30 parishioners, including a Shah, her children, and the altar server Thomas. Each told the same story. They had seen the same face at the same moment, under the same impossible glow. Weeks passed. The host was secured in a transparent reliquary and stored in the diocesan chapel under constant supervision. A team of theologians began studying the case alongside the scientific findings. The process would take months. Meanwhile, pilgrims began arriving quietly, first from neighboring villages, then from distant parts of Kerala. They came not to gape, but to pray. At night, candles lined the road leading to the church. A small banner hung near the entrance. Adoration continues. Inside, silence. The miracle had awakened something deeper than curiosity. It had revived devotion. By mid-2024, the Archdiocese of Thalassery submitted its full dossier to the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith in Rome, the Vatican department that examines such phenomena. The report included over 60 sworn testimonies, forensic analysis of the host, photographic evidence verified by independent experts, and a detailed account of the liturgical circumstances. The Vatican's experts reviewed the materials over several months. In May 2025, after theological and scientific consultation, the Holy See issued a formal note acknowledging the Eucharistic Miracle of Vilakkannur. It declared the event worthy of belief, inviting the faithful to draw inspiration from it as a sign of Christ's enduring presence in the Eucharist. For the people of Vilakkannur, it was a day of quiet triumph. There were no parades or fireworks, just a special Mass of thanksgiving celebrated by Archbishop Enjaralakat. He said in his homily, "God has chosen a humble place, a small village, to remind the world of the greatness of His love. When faith grows cold, He warms it again with His own light." The photographs were reprinted and displayed in the parish hall. In them, the face on the host appeared gentle, almost sorrowful, framed by the golden circle of the monstrance. The Vatican's recognition drew pilgrims from across India. Buses arrived daily, their passengers carrying candles, rosaries, and flowers. A new chapel was built beside the church to hold the host permanently under glass. It became known as the Shrine of the Face of the Eucharist. Father Johnson refused interviews. "The story is not mine," he told reporters. "It belongs to God and to those who will believe because of it." He continued to celebrate Mass each morning with the same quiet humility as before, the miracle always at his side, yet never on his lips. One evening, long after the investigations had ended, He opened his old homily notebook. On the page he had written before the miracle, he reread the prayer he had used for years. "Lord, show us your face, and we shall be saved." He smiled softly, closed the book, and placed it back on his desk. Sometimes, he thought, the Lord answers prayers word for word. On a quiet evening nearly 2 years later, F.R. Johnson locked the church after the last group of pilgrims had left. The air smelled of rain and candle wax. He stepped outside and paused on the stone steps, watching fog gather over the valley. From somewhere far below came the echo of a hymn carried by the wind. "O Sacrament most holy, O Sacrament divine." Inside, only one candle still burned before the monstrance. Its flame flickered, reflecting faintly off the glass case that held the host. The face was barely visible now, almost gone, but he knew it was still there hidden, waiting, as the Eucharist itself always is. He opened his worn homily notebook. On the very first page, the same verse he had prayed before everything began stared back at him. "Lord, show us your face, and we shall be saved." He whispered it again, this time not as a request, but as gratitude. Then he extinguished the final candle. Darkness folded gently around the altar, and for an instant he saw, or thought he saw, a trace of gold lingering in the air, like the memory of light refusing to die. Outside, the rain began its soft percussion on the roof tiles. In the village below, families knelt for their evening prayers, and somewhere a child's voice rose clear and small, repeating the same line the priest had just spoken. "Show us your face, O Lord, and we shall be saved." The bell of Christ, the King, rang once, its sound drifting through the hills, a reminder that even when the miracle fades from sight, its echo continues in every heart that still believes. News of the Vatican's recognition spread slowly at first, carried by word of mouth and parish newsletters. Then, almost overnight, photos of the host appeared on phones and televisions across the world. What surprised F.R. Johnson most was not the attention, but the letters, hundreds of them, written in every language imaginable. A father from Argentina described watching the video of the Mass and suddenly weeping in front of his children. A university student from Nigeria wrote that he had been ready to leave the church entirely, but after seeing the story from India, decided to return to confession. A grandmother from Canada enclosed a single white candle in her envelope, saying, "Please light this where the face appeared." Each message was a story of renewal, and the parish kept them all in a wooden chest by the altar. Every week the youth group opened a few, read them aloud, and prayed for the people who had sent them. Pilgrims arrived in waves. Some came barefoot, others on crutches. A few arrived carrying babies wrapped in white cloth. They came to thank, to ask, to believe again. The church could not hold them all, so the villagers built awnings outside, stringing lights between palm trees. In the evenings, when rain drummed on the tin roof, the sound of prayer blended with thunder until the whole valley seemed to breathe as one. One evening, a small bus stopped at the foot of the hill. Among the passengers was Sister Maria, an elderly nun from Goa. She walked with a cane, but when she reached the altar, she stood straight and smiled. She whispered to the priest, "I waited 60 years to see something like this. Now I can die in peace." Moments like these convinced F.R. Johnson that the miracle's purpose was far larger than the event itself. It wasn't about one host. It was about awakening hearts that had gone quiet. When journalists asked why the Vatican's confirmation mattered, F.R. Johnson gave the same answer every time. Faith and reason are not enemies. They bow to the same truth. The diocesan report included scientific observations, not to prove God, but to show that belief need not fear inquiry. Under microscopes, The surface of the host showed no paint or burn marks. The fibers of the unleavened bread were intact. Light seemed to refract through microscopic air pockets, forming patterns beyond any human etching. Some experts said it resembled photographic negatives, others called it a diffraction of humidity and light. Yet none could explain why the image persisted for months without fading. Theologians compared the finding to earlier Eucharistic phenomena, l'anciano, where the host became cardiac tissue of human origin, legnica, where blood cells retained life markers long after separation from any body, Buenos Aires, where DNA fragments matched the same Ab+ blood group found in l'anciano, and on the Shroud of Turin. Vilakkannur's event was different, gentler, almost personal. It spoke not through science, but through beauty. Where the others showed proof, this one showed presence. One Jesuit scholar summarized it best. L'anciano was flesh, legnica was blood, Vilakkannur is face. God has moved from the invisible to the personal. He looks back at us. That line appeared in newspapers across India, and suddenly even non-Catholic neighbors began visiting the chapel, curious to see the host that looked back. Hindu and Muslim families came respectfully, lighting small oil lamps outside as a sign of reverence. The miracle had become a bridge, not a barrier. By the first anniversary, the parish had received nearly 3,000 letters. Some came in typed envelopes. Others were scribbled on scraps of paper. The priest read one from a young woman in Chicago. "I lost my mother last year. I asked God to show me her face one more time. Instead, he showed me his." Another from the Philippines simply said, "We built a small adoration chapel because of your story. Every night someone is praying now." A letter from an atheist in France surprised everyone. "I don't believe in miracles, but the calm on your faces made me wonder if I've been missing something." Fr. Johnson posted that one on the bulletin board with a note underneath, "Keep praying for him." The miracle's echo reached hospitals, prisons, schools. A copy of the photograph hung in a children's ward in Bangalore. Nurses said it brought quiet to the room. A chaplain in a military base used it during confession. The image had traveled farther than anyone in Vilakkannur could have imagined. The years passed, but the story refused to fade. The original host, now carefully preserved, no longer showed clear lines, yet pilgrims kept coming. They said the power wasn't in the image anymore. It was in the silence that surrounded it. One late evening, as the church emptied, a teenage boy lingered near the altar. He had grown up hearing about the miracle, but had never seen the face clearly. Fr. Johnson approached and asked, "What are you looking for?" The boy shrugged. "I just wanted to know if it's still there." The priest smiled. "It is just hidden. Some things are meant to be believed before they are seen." He turned off the lights, and in the dim glow from a single candle, the golden rim of the monstrance caught the flame, scattering small sparks across the glass. For an instant, the boy thought he saw a shimmer, faint but unmistakable, like a smile vanishing into light. Outside, the rain began again, whispering against the palm leaves. The same rhythm that had filled the night of the miracle now wrapped the valley in peace. The bell rang once deep, low, resonant, and its echo drifted over the hills. The host no longer shines as it once did, the narrator closes. But the light remains in the hearts of those who saw, in those who believed, and even in those who still wonder.